The Detroit Lions have announced their roster moves for the Week 16 matchup against the Chicago Bears. I usually look at this before I make a video, but I'm going to look at it and be surprised with you guys. So let's take a look without further ado. This is coming from Detroit Lions Twitter. Says the Detroit Lions announced roster moves. They have waived safety Brandon Joseph and wide receiver Maurice Alexander. They waived defensive lineman David Bata with an injured reserve from injured reserve with an injury settlement. Activated safety of Fatu Melifonwu from injured reserve remains listed as questionable for game status. That means he's going to play. Outside linebacker Mitchell Agude, wide receiver Tom Kennedy, and defensive lineman Chris Smith from the practice squad to the active roster. And last, they have elevated running back Jamar Jefferson and safety Lauren Strickland from the practice squad to the inactive list. All righty then. This is a ton to break down. Let's break it down in segments. All right, so Brandon Joseph, a guy that people were very high on during the offseason, they've waived him and Maurice Alexander. That means that they are no longer on the active roster. They have to go through waivers, and then the Detroit Lions will most likely bring them back on the practice squad. They have waived defensive lineman David Bata from injured reserve with an injury settlement. I just think they're cutting ties with him. Activated. Well, when you do that, okay, so David Bata could come back if you have to add 3 weeks. Maybe David Bata is healthy enough to play, but he was already done. You know what I'm saying? We put him on season-ending IR, but he's healthy enough to play. So maybe the Detroit Lions are going to try to bring him back after the 3 weeks. If you come back to the Detroit Lions, you have to wait an additional 3 weeks from whenever your injury was done. So what I'm thinking with this is maybe they have waived him with the intention of bringing him back by the playoffs. They have activated Ife Melifonwu, which means that he is going to wind up playing tomorrow, most likely. That's what that means. Then we bring Mitchell Agude, elevation. He is now on the practice squad. Remember, Isaac Ukwu is the one that was being elevated, but we bring Mitchell Agude to the active roster, right? I think Ukwu might already be on here with the injuries to the defensive line. Wide receiver Tom Kennedy is on the active roster. He is the wide receiver that we decided to bring in over Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's the situation. Defensive lineman Chris Smith. He's been pretty solid for us. And then we elevate Jamar Jefferson and Lauren Strickland from the practice squad to the active-inactive list. All right. This is an abundance of roster moves that the Detroit Lions have made. This is the biggest, the most moves that they've made this season. This is all strategic. The reason they did this is all strategy-based. All right. So that means that our practice squad, we have 3. Okay, so that means that Tom Kennedy is now our 5th wide receiver, and he's probably going to be bringing back punts. So here's what I see happening. So that is, let me go back to that. That is now, we signed 1, 2, 3. 3 people to the active roster to replace the 2 people that we waived, and then the spots that we already had. Jamar Jefferson will be running back number 4, so it's going to be probably Jahmyr Gibbs, Craig Reynolds, Sione Vaki, and then Jamar Jefferson. I'm kind of excited to see the last 2 to see what they do. And then Lauren Strickland is a safety that's going to. So here's what's going to happen. So that means that if he's going to play tomorrow, we're not going to waive Brandon Joseph if he's not going to play tomorrow. So if he is in, this again is the most roster moves that the Detroit Lions have made. I mean, just doing some things. But how bad is Donovan Peoples-Jones? How bad is he? He has not seen one elevation all year long. And what's probably going to happen is Tom Kennedy and those guys are going to get waived after this game, no doubt, or maybe as the season progresses. But I think with the David Bata situation, what I think they're doing is I don't know if this is allowed, but I think what they're doing is they're waiving him with the injury settlement. So let's say that he wants to return to the Detroit Lions. He could come back to the playoffs, by the playoffs, because if you come back to the team that waived you, if you have an injury settlement, you have to add an additional 3 weeks to that. So I believe that that's what they're doing. They waived him, injury settlement. I think that they're going to try to sign him back as the playoffs begin, but we'll see what happens there. But Maurice Alexander, Brandon Joseph, we kind of knew Maurice was going to be in and out, but Brandon Joseph is a guy that's been on this team since the start of the season, and now he is being waived. I expect both of those guys to clear waivers. They'll probably come back to the practice squad after all is said and done. This is a situation where the Detroit Lions have to do musical roster at this point. I mean, we are just making moves. This is the most amount that I've ever seen happen. So yes, if Melifonwu is still questionable heading into the game, I think he's going to play. Usually questionable turns into usually play on game day. Barring something freakish happens, you're going to wind up playing. Doubtful usually leans toward you're going to be out. I think as well. Now, I've seen some things and heard some people saying that if he's going to play Sam linebacker, I don't know if that's entirely true, but I could see that if he could possibly be backing up, or maybe Jamal Adams can also be. Don't forget, he is a safety. He plays safety. He still plays safety at a decent level. I'm not going to say extremely high level, but he's not shabby from the safety position. So it's going to be a very intriguing situation, a flurry of roster moves heading into week 16 against the Chicago Bears. That means that we are going to now have to replace 3 people on the practice squad, unless the Lions are thinking about waiving those guys directly after this game and immediately putting them back on the practice squad. So I don't know. I believe Isaac Ukwu was elevated before with the injuries that we had before. So now Mitchell Agude has been elevated. So here's the thing that I'm wondering. Now let's very briefly, because I want to pull up the Detroit Lions. I want to pull up their practice squad, and I want to see who do we have on the practice squad, because now we are running very thin on defensive linemen, because all the injuries to our defensive line. I mean, every starter is out except, oh, wait a minute. Jamal Adams was not elevated. Jamal, I just realized I expected him to be on the roster, and he was not elevated, which means they're saving him. They are saving this guy. That's what that means, because they have one more elevation. So we're going to see a lot of moves made after this game against the Chicago Bears. This is not yet updated, but Jamal Adams has been left out of the rotation. Wow. Just kind of sunk in. All right, so Mitchell Agude, Bo Plan. How many defensive linemen do we have on this practice squad? Chris Smith was elevated. So we have Isaac Ukwu is still on the practice squad. He's still on the practice. So we just won. So it's going to be a lot of moves made this week coming up after. I think the Lions want to see how this thing plays out against the Chicago Bears. But Isaac Ukwu still on the practice squad, has one more elevation. Then you have Mitchell Agude. That's kind of intriguing. I mean, so here's what I'm thinking. This is a weird situation, but I know that it's all strategic, because my guess is they're going to waive all 3 of these guys that they signed. I think they're going to wind up waiving Mitchell Agude, Tom Kennedy, and Chris Smith. And the reason that they didn't elevate Isaac Ukwu is because after that, they got to sign him to the 53 or waive him. But you would think they would sign him to the 53. So this is definitely a chess move by the Detroit Lions trying to figure out what's going on here. But man, this is something else. We are hurting for bodies right now, and we are going to definitely have to replenish them sooner or later. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. Now, the Miami Dolphins are still in the hunt. I don't know if they'll be eliminated after this particular game, but how things are going, I think they still have a little bit of life. If they win, they're probably still in it, but if they lose, they might be eliminated. So I wonder how that Calais Campbell thing is going to work out, but it's going to be a crazy home stretch as the Detroit Lions are still trying to bring people onto the team. We got a few people coming back, so that should be intriguing to see. Jason Pierre-Paul, man, still sitting out there waiting for a team to give him a call. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. A bunch of stuff we had to go over today, but this channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. Don't forget about the Ridge wallet. I meant to bring it down. I actually installed the money clip. It was super easy. Just had to take off a couple screws, put on the money clip because the strap was a bit tough to get stuff into. The money clip, I love it. I can put my Meyer coupons there, or in the rare case that I carry some dollars, I can put those there as well. And Green Gridiron still has their buy more, save more promotion going on. That's going to be going on for the next few weeks, I believe. So consider hopping on that while they do have some things in stock. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.